All right, everybody. Welcome back to the Mainly Hoops podcast, where we're covering the Big Ten transfer portal news. We've got Wisconsin we're diving into today. They made a little bit of moves, nothing too crazy. We'll start with Marcus. Marcus, who was your favorite addition that the Badgers got in this offseason?
I guess Nick Boyd coming over from San Diego State. He was originally rumored to go to Carolina, um, then ended up at Wisconsin. Now there's a lot of opportunity here. Obviously, last year they lost Tanji, who really broke out and was one of the best players in the country last season. So a lot of opportunity on the offensive end. Last year he shot like 35% from three. Pretty solid player. Previously at Florida Atlantic, 13, 4-4 last year. So I think he's probably their best get. They brought in Andrew Rohde, who Cody, I'll let you speak to him a little bit. Not my favorite player. He coming over from Virginia, shot it pretty well though. 41% from three last year on 3.5 attempts a game or so. Then a couple other like depth pieces. Austin Rapp coming over from Portland. He had a good year last year there, but loves to shoot the three ball. 236 of his 340 shot attempts last year were from three. But I think Nick Boyd probably their best get just in terms of like what they need. Is going to be Blackwell. On the perimeter now they have Boyd to kind of help him out on the perimeter. But yeah, that's where I'm at with Wisconsin, I think.
Cody, who's your go-to guy this offseason?
Yeah, I would agree. I think it's Nick Boyd, and I think Marcus kind of nailed it on the head. I view him as just a rock solid point guard presence for Wisconsin. He proved a lot to me last year at San Diego State as an initiator. His 2 or 3 years at FAU, he was more of an off the ball player, more secondary creator. Like off ball shooting was really his best trait, but he proved a lot of things to me as an initiator. He can provide now. He can really provide value on or off the ball as a scorer. He's not like an overly talented shot maker. I don't love like his shooting upside for him to shoot like 40% from three by any means next season, but his scoring competence off the catch and off the bounce, along with his playmaking ability, and he's a really solid decision maker, especially in pick and roll. I think that's going to allow his game to translate in a more like open style at Wisconsin than we're used to seeing. They kind of picked up the pace last season, so that was something that is going to help him out a lot with the extra spacing that he's going to have on this roster. Like San Diego State didn't really have much spacing on their roster last season, so I think that's going to help him out a lot. And like I said, I don't expect a John Tajay like output. He really broke out last year at Wisconsin, and he's not like the 3-level scorer that Tajay was, but I do expect him to lead the way as the initiator for this offense. A lot's going to go through Blackwell as well, but he's more scoring minded. But I do think Nick Boyd is going to be a rock solid point guard presence for this Wisconsin team next year.
Are there any other transfers that stand out? And how do these guys fit into the Wisconsin system? Marcus, we'll go with you.
I mean, we've talked about Boyd enough. I guess I'll speak to Austin Rapp a little bit at Portland. I mean, he should have a role, pretty big role right away, right? He averaged almost, I think, a block and a half a game last year. He'll play alongside Nolan Winter. You would think he's 6'10", so like big body, shoots a lot of threes. So he'll be able to space the floor. I don't hate the get for Wisconsin here with Rapp. It'll just be a matter of how does he translate coming from Portland now to the Big Ten. It's obviously a different level of basketball. So. But he did average almost 14 and 6.5 boards last year too. Solid piece. If he can knock down the three at his 35% clip or so, like he did last year, like I think Wisconsin would be pretty happy with that.
Cody, you got anything to add about Rapp or any of the other transfers?
Yeah, Rapp, he's definitely an interesting talent. I mean, his 1 year at Portland, it was pretty much all from the perimeter. I mean, he averaged like 7 attempts from three per game. Like it doesn't really provide much inside the arc scoring for his size. I mean, he's 6'10", 230, and like just really struggles to get to the rim or really provide any value there. So, I mean, his value in this offense is going to be as a catch and shoot guy and potentially as a pick and pop option if he's going to play the 5 a little bit when Winter goes to the bench. But I do kind of like the spacing dynamic that those guys provide overall. He's not going to be a super high upside guy by any means, just because I'm not that high on his 3-level scoring ability. But those two side by side, and especially on the defensive end, I think they both defensive rebound pretty well and can protect the rim at a competent level. So I don't mind the duo. I don't think it's like one of the better duos in the Big Ten by any means, but I do think they did a pretty good job there. And then just to touch on Rhodey a little bit, like before I kind of dove into what he did last year, I kind of wrote him off after the 2024 season. He had one of the worst seasons in the power conference ranks that I've seen. I mean, he was a 37% effective field goal percentage guy in 2024, went all the way up to 52.4% last season and 26% from 3 compared to 41.3% from 3 last year. And he provides some initiation too on the offensive end as a pick and roll operator. And I think he's a really good passer. A bit he turns the ball over a little bit too often for me, makes some like lazier passes, kind of anticipates where guys are going to be before actually he kind of predetermines his decisions is kind of what I mean to say there. But he impressed me a little bit more than I would have thought before I dove into the film. So I think he's a good get. He's going to be more of a secondary action guy, secondary creator for this team when guys like Boyd and Blackwell are on the bench. But all 3 of these guys are going to be able to play together just because they can all space the floor.
Right on. What can we expect from this team in the upcoming season? And do we think they got better? Do we think they got worse? Marcus, we'll go with you.
I mean, I think from what they were going to have, considering what graduated, obviously through the portal, they got better, but they're going to be worse than last year for sure. I think. I mean, they're going to be able to space the floor out on the offensive end, but Blackwell is now like the guy, right? He's going to be relied on very heavily on the offensive end, and he's just mainly looking to score, not a big like play creation guy. So I think there's going to be just a lot of pressure. It's going to be new for a lot of these guys. Boyd is going to be asked to probably have to score a little bit more. I think they're a middle of the pack Big Ten team. I don't really see them much better than that. They're probably like I don't know. Right now, I feel like they're probably a bubble team for the tournament. Maybe just in. I don't know. I think it's really going to depend on like, can Blackwell really be that guy for them on the offensive end, and then how do these transfers fit in once they get to conference play?
Cody, we'll go with you. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, this is a Wisconsin team under Greg Gard that's always had a really high floor. I mean, their worst Torvik finish was 72nd in 2018. They were 59th in 2023. But besides that, they've been inside the top 40 in Torvik rank since Greg Gard has been there. So, I mean, I expect them to have a high floor. Always a well-balanced team. I think this offense is still going to be pretty good. They're not going to get to the line as often as they did. They're not going to shoot it as well as they did last year, but I still think there's some scoring ability on this roster at really all 5 positions pretty much at all times. When you go to the bench, it gets a little bit iffy, but with their starting lineup and a few guys coming off the bench, like, I mean, we didn't really touch on Braden Carrington. He's going to be more of just a floor spacer. And then Janicki, if he can provide some value in year 2 as a shooter, I thought he showed a little bit of promise in the small amount of time that he was on the floor. I think those guys are going to be able to help as well. But yeah, I do think this team ends up getting into the tournament, but just because, I mean, they always have a high floor, and Greg Gard's only missed the tournament one time. I mean, 2020 obviously doesn't count, but they were a projected 4 seed that season. But it's obviously not a super high ceiling just because the talent level isn't fantastic across the board. But I do view them as 8 or 9 seed floor.
Any final thoughts before we wrap things up with Wisconsin?
I mean, I just think it's gonna look different, obviously, right? I mean, Tanji's not there anymore, um, so that they're gonna have to kind of figure it out. I mean, they relied a lot on him last year. Not to say that they didn't have other guys too, but like he was awesome all season long, and whenever they needed a big bucket, he went and got it for the most part. So, gonna be a lot on Blackwell's plate, and some of those other guys that we've talked about, in particular the starting five. So, we'll see how things shake out for the Badgers.
Cody, any final thoughts for you?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't expect anything crazy from this team. Obviously, I mean, they're going to have a ton of balance on both ends of the floor. Great guard teams always do, but it's not a team that's going to wow you with offensive talent this season, but they're going to compete night in and night out in the Big Ten.
All right, we'll wrap things up with the Badgers. As always, thank you guys for listening to the Mainly Hoops podcast.